The Buddha's answer to every problem: don't cling. It's very beneficial that we have practiced the Dhamma by contemplating ourselves step by step and have, to some extent, come to know the truth. This is because each person has to find the truth within. The truths of stress, its cause, and the path leading to its disbanding. If we don't know these things, we fall into the same sufferings as the rest of the world. We may have come to live in a Dhamma center, yet if we don't know these truths, we don't benefit from staying here. The only way we differ from living at home is that we're observing the precepts. If we don't want to be deluded in our practice, these truths are things we have to know. Otherwise, we get deluded into looking for our fun in the stresses and sufferings offered by the world. Our practice is to contemplate until we understand stress and its cause. In other words, the defilements that have power and authority in the heart and mind. It's only because we have this practice that we can disband these defilements, that we can disband stress every day and at all times. This is something really marvelous. Those who don't practice don't have a clue, even though they live enveloped by defilements and stress. They simply get led around by the nose into more and more suffering, and yet none of them realize what's going on. If we don't make contact with the Dhamma, if we don't practice, we go through birth and death simply to create karma with one another and to keep whirling around in suffering and stress. All things are unworthy of attachment. We have to contemplate until we really see stress. That's when we'll become uncomplacent and try to disband it or to gain release from it. The practice is thus a matter of struggling to gain victory over stress and suffering with better and better results each time. Whatever mistakes we make in whatever way, we have to try not to make them again. And we have to contemplate the harm and suffering caused by the more subtle defilements, cravings, and attachments within us. This is why we have to probe into the deeper, more profound parts of the heart. For if we stay only on the superficial levels of emptiness in the mind, we won't gain any profound knowledge at all. So we train the mind to be mindful and firmly centered, and to fix its focus on looking within, knowing within. Don't let it get distracted outside. When it focuses within, it will come to know the truth of stress and of the causes of stress, defilement, craving, and attachment as they arise. It will see what they're like and how to probe inward to disband them. When all is said and done, the practice comes down to one issue because it focuses exclusively on one thing, stress together with its cause. This is the central issue in human life. Even animals are in the same predicament. But our ignorance deludes us into latching onto all kinds of things. This is because of our misunderstandings or wrong views. If we gain right view, we see things correctly. Whenever we see stress, we see its truth. When we see the cause of stress, we see its truth. We both know and see because we've focused on it. If you don't focus on stress, you won't know it. But as soon as you focus on it, you will. It's because the mind hasn't focused here that it wanders out oblivious, chasing after its preoccupations. When we try to focus it down, it struggles and resists because it's used to wandering. But if we keep focusing it again and again, more and more frequently until we get a sense of how to bring it under control, then the task ultimately becomes easier because the mind no longer struggles to chase after its preoccupations as it did before. No matter how much it resists when we start training it, eventually we're sure to bring it under our control, getting it to settle down and be still. If it doesn't settle down, you have to contemplate it. You have to show it that you mean business. This is because defilement and craving are very strong. You can't be weak when dealing with them. You have to be brave, to have a fight-to-the-death attitude, and to keep sustaining your efforts. If you're concerned only with finding comfort and pleasure, the day will never come when you'll gain release. You'll have to continue staying under their power. Their power envelops everything in our character, making it very difficult for us to find out the truth about ourselves. What we do know is just a smattering, and so we play truant, abandoning the task, and end up seeing that the practice of the Dhamma isn't really important. Thus, we don't bother to be strict with ourselves, and instead involve ourselves in all kinds of things, for that's the path the defilements keep pointing out to us. We grope along weakly, making it harder and harder to see stress clearly, because we keep giving in to the defilements and taking their bait. When they complain about the slightest discomfort, we quickly pander to them and take the bait again. It's because we're so addicted to the bait that we don't appreciate either the power of craving, as it wanders out after sights, sounds, smells, tastes, etc., or the harm it causes in making us scattered and restless, unable to stay still and contemplate ourselves. It's always finding things for us to do, to think about, making ourselves suffer, and yet we remain blind to the fact. Now that we've come to practice the Dhamma, we begin to have a sense of what's going on. For this reason, whoever practices without being complacent will find that defilement and stress will have to grow lighter and lighter, step by step. The areas where we used to be defeated, we now come out victorious. Where we used to be burned by the defilements, we now have the mindfulness and discernment to burn them instead. Only when we stop groping around and really come to our senses will we realize the benefits of the Dhamma, the importance of the practice. Then there is no way that we can abandon the practice, for something inside us keeps forcing us to stay with it. We've seen that if we don't practice to disband defilement and stress, the stress of the defilements will keep piling up. This is why we have to stay with the practice to our last breath. You have to be firm in not letting yourself be weak and easily led astray. Those who are mindful and discerning will naturally act it this way. Those who aren't will keep on following their defilements, ending up back where they were when they hadn't yet started practicing to gain release from stress. They may keep on practicing, but it's hard to tell what they're practicing for, mostly for more stress. This shows that they're still groping around, and when they grope around in this way, they start criticizing the practice as useless and bad. When a person submits readily to defilement and craving, there's no way she can practice. For if you're going to practice, there are a lot of things you have to struggle with and endure. It's like paddling a boat against the stream. You have to use strength if you want to make any headway. It's not easy to go against the stream of the defilements because they are always ready to pull you down to a lower level. If you aren't mindful and discerning, if you don't use the Lord Buddha's Dhamma to examine yourself, your strength will fail you. For if you have only a little mindfulness and discernment in the face of a lot of defilements, they'll make you vacillate. And if you're living with sweet-talking sycophants, you'll go even further off the path, involved with all sorts of things and oblivious to the practice. To practice the Dhamma, then, is to go against the flow, to go upstream against suffering and stress, because suffering and stress are the main problems. If you don't really contemplate stress, your practice will go nowhere. Stress is where you start, and then you try to trace out its root cause. You have to use your discernment to track down exactly where stress originates, for stress is a result. Once you see the result, you have to track down the cause. Those who are mindful and discerning are never complacent. Whenever stress arises, they're sure to search out its causes so that they can eliminate them. This sort of investigation can proceed on many levels, from the coarse to the refined, and requires that you seek advice so that you don't stumble. Otherwise, you may think you can figure it all out in your head, which won't work at all. The basic Dhamma principles that the Lord Buddha proclaimed for us to use in our contemplation are many, but there's no need to learn them all. Just focusing on some of the more important ones, such as the 5 aggregates or name and form, will be very useful. But you need to keep making a thorough, all-round examination, not just an occasional probe, so that a feeling of dispassion and disengagement arises and loosens the grip of desire. Use mindfulness to keep constant and close supervision over the senses, and that mindfulness will come to be more present than your tendency to drift off elsewhere. Regardless of what you're doing, saying, or thinking, be on the lookout for whatever will make you slip. For if you're tenacious in sustaining mindfulness, that's how all your stresses and sufferings can be disbanded. So keep it this. If you fall down 100 times, get back up 100 times and resume your stance. The reason mindfulness and discernment are slow to develop is because you're not really sensitive to yourself. The greater your sensitivity, the stronger your mindfulness and discernment will become. As the Lord Buddha said, Bhavita Bahulikata, which means develop and maximize. In other words, make the most of your mindfulness. The more you practice and contemplate, the more you become sensitive to this on deeper and deeper levels. The way your practice has developed through contemplating and supervising the mind throughout your daily life has already shown its rewards to some extent. So keep stepping up your efforts. Don't let yourself grow weak or lax. You finally got this opportunity. Can you afford to be complacent? Your life is steadily ebbing away, so you have to compensate by building up more and more mindfulness and discernment until you become mature in the Dhamma. Otherwise, your defilements will remain many and your discernment crude. The older you grow, the more you have to watch out, for we know what happens to old people everywhere. So seize the moment to develop the faculties of conviction, persistence, mindfulness, concentration, and discernment in a balanced way. Keep contemplating and probing, and you'll protect yourself from wandering out after the world. No matter who tempts you to go with them, you can be sure within yourself that you won't go following them because you no longer have to go believing anyone else or hoping for the baits of the world, because the baits of the world are poison. The Dhamma has to be the refugee and light of your life. Once you have this degree of conviction in yourself, you can't help but stride forward without slipping back. But if you waver and wander, unsure of whether or not to keep practicing the Dhamma, watch out. You're sure to get pulled over the cliff and into the pit of fire. If you aren't free within yourself, you get pulled at from all sides because the world is full of things that keep pulling at you. But those who have the intelligence not to be gullible will see the stress and harm of those things distinctly for themselves. For this reason, they're not headed for anything low. They won't have to keep suffering in the world. They feel dispassion. They lose their taste for all the various baits and lures the world has to offer. The practice of the Dhamma is what allows us to shake off whatever attractive things used to delude us into holding on. Realize that it won't be long before we die. We won't be here much longer. So even if anyone offers us incredible wealth, why should we want it? Who could really own it? Who could really control it? If you can read yourself in this matter, you come to a feeling of dispassion, disenchantment. You lose your taste for all the lures of the world. You no longer hold them in esteem. If you make use of them, it's for the sake of the benefits they give in terms of the Dhamma, but your disenchantment stays continuous. Even the name and form you've been regarding as me and mine have been wearing down and falling apart continually. As for the defilements, they're still lying in wait to burn you. So how can you afford to be oblivious? First, there's the suffering and stress of the 5 aggregates, and on top of that, there's the suffering and stress caused by defilement, craving, and attachment, stabbing you, slapping you, beating you. The more you practice and contemplate, the more you become sensitive to this on deeper and deeper levels. Your interest in blatant things outside, good and bad people, good and bad things, gets swept away. You don't have to concern yourself with them, for you're concerned solely with penetrating yourself within, destroying your pride and conceit. Outside affairs aren't important. What's important is how clearly you can see the truth inside until the brightness appears. The brightness that comes from seeing the truth isn't at all like the light we see outside. Once you really know it, you see that it's indescribable, for it's something entirely personal. It cleans everything out of the heart and mind in line with the strength of our mindfulness and discernment. It's what sweeps and cleans and clears and lets go and disbands things inside. But if we don't have mindfulness and discernment as our means of knowing, contemplating, and letting go, then everything inside is dark on all sides. And not only dark, but also full of fire whose poisonous fuel keeps burning away. What could be more terrifying than the fuel burning inside us? Even though it's invisible, it flares up every time there's sensory contact. The bombs they drop on people to wipe them out aren't really all that dangerous, for you can die only once per lifetime. But the 3 bombs of passion, aversion, and delusion keep exploding the heart and mind countless times. Normally, we don't realize how serious the damage is, but when we come to practice the Dhamma, we can take stock of the situation, seeing what it's like when sensory contact comes. At what moments the burning heat of defilement and craving arises, and why they're all so very quick. If you contemplate how to disband suffering and defilement, you need the proper tools and have to make the effort without being complacent. The fact that we've come to practice out here without any involvements or worldly responsibilities helps speed up the practice. It's extremely beneficial in helping us to examine our inner diseases in detail and to disband suffering and stress continually in line with our mindfulness and discernment. Our burdens grow lighter, and we come to realize how much our practice of the Dhamma is progressing in the direction of the cessation of suffering. Those who don't have the time to come and rest here or to really stop get carried away with all kinds of distractions. They may say, "I can practice anywhere," but it's just words. The fact of the matter is that their practice is to follow the defilements until their heads are spinning, and yet they can still boast that they can practice anywhere. Their mouths aren't in line with their minds, and their minds, burned and beaten by defilement, craving, and attachment, don't realize their situation. They're like worms that live in filth and are happy to stay and die right there in the filth. People with any mindfulness and discernment feel disgust at the filth of the defilements in the mind. The more they practice, the more sensitive they become, the more their revulsion grows. Before, when our mindfulness and discernment were still crude, we didn't feel this at all. We were happy to play around in the filth within ourselves. But now that we've come to practice, to contemplate from the blatant to the more subtle levels, we sense more and more how disgusting the filth really is. There's nothing to it that's worth falling for at all, because it's all inconstancy, stress, and not self. So what's there to want out of life? Those who are ignorant say that we're born to gain wealth and be millionaires, but that kind of life is like falling into hell. If you understand the practice of the Dhamma in the Buddha's footsteps, you realize that nothing is worth having, nothing is worth getting involved with. Everything has to be let go. Those who still latch on to the body, feeling, perceptions, thought fabrications, and consciousness as self need to contemplate until they see that the body is stressful, feelings are stressful, perceptions are stressful, thought fabrications are stressful, consciousness is stressful. In short, name is stressful and so is form, or in even plainer terms, the body is stressful and so is the mind. You have to focus on stress. Once you see it thoroughly from the blatant to the subtle levels, you'll be able to rise above pleasure and pain because you've let them go. But if you have yet to fully understand stress, you'll still yearn for pleasure, and the more you yearn, the more you suffer. This holds too for the pleasure that comes when the mind is tranquil. If you let yourself get stuck on it, you're like a person addicted to a drug. Once there's the desire, you take the drug and think yourself happy. But as for how much suffering the repeated desire causes, you don't have the intelligence to see it. All you see is that if you take the drug whenever you want, you're okay. When people can't shake off their addictions, this is why. They get stuck on the sense of pleasure that comes when they take the drug. They're ingesting sensuality, and they keep on wanting more, for only when they ingest more will their hunger subside. But soon it comes back again, so they'll want still more. They keep on ingesting sensuality, stirring up the mind, but don't see that there's any harm or suffering involved. Instead, they say they're happy. When the longing gets really intense, it feels really good to satisfy it. That's what they say. People who have heavy defilements and crude discernment don't see that desire and longing are suffering, and so they don't know how to do away with them. As soon as they take what they want, the desire goes away. Then it comes back again, so they take some more. It comes back again, and they take still more, over and over like this, so blind that they don't know anything at all. People of intelligence, though, contemplate, why is there desire, and why do I have to satisfy it? And when it comes back, why do I have to keep satisfying it over and over again? Once they realize that the desire in and of itself is what they have to attack, that by disbanding this one thing they won't feel any disturbance and will never have to suffer from desire again, that's when they really can gain release from suffering and stress. But for the most part, we don't see things from this angle because we still take our pleasure in consuming things. This is why it's hard for us to practice to abandon desire. All we know is how to feed on the bait, so we don't dare try giving it up. As when people who are addicted to meat eating are afraid to become vegetarians. Why? Because they're still attached to flavor, still slaves to desire. If you can't let go of even these blatant things, how can you ever hope to abandon the damp and fermenting desires within you that are so much harder to detect? You still take the most blatant baits. When desire whispers and pleads with you, there you go, pandering to it as quickly as possible. You don't notice how much this tires you out. Don't realize that this is the source of the most vicious sufferings that deceive all living beings into falling under its power. Even though the Buddha's teachings reveal the easiest way to use our discernment to contemplate cause and effect in this area, we don't make the effort to contemplate and instead keep swallowing the bait. We get our pleasure and that's all we want, going with the flow of defilement and craving. Our practice here is to go against the flow of every sort of desire and wandering of the mind. It means self-restraint and training in many, many areas, as for instance, when sights, sounds, smells, tastes, tactile sensations arise and deceive us into liking something and then, a moment later, tiring of it and wanting something else. We get so thoroughly deceived that we end up running frantically all over the place. The virulent diseases in the mind are more than many. If you don't know how to deal with them, you'll remain under Mara's power. Those who have truly seen stress and suffering will be willing to put their lives on the line in their effort to work free, in the same way the Buddha was willing to put his life on the line in order to gain freedom from suffering and release from the world. He wasn't out after personal comfort at all. Each Buddha-to-be has had to undergo suffering in the world for his own sake and that of others. Each has had to relinquish all of his vast wealth instead of using it for his comfort. So the practice is one of struggle and endurance. Whoever struggles and endures will gain victory, and no other victory can match it. Gaining control over the defilements is the ultimate victory. Whatever you contemplate, you can let go. That's the ultimate victory. So please keep at the effort. You can't let yourself relax after each little victory. The more you keep being victorious, the stronger, more daring, and more resilient your mindfulness and discernment will become in every area, examining everything regardless of whether it comes in by way of the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, or mind. The more you examine yourself, the sharper your mindfulness and discernment will become, understanding how to disband things and let them go. As soon as there's attachment, you'll see the suffering and stress, just as when you touch fire, feel the heat and immediately let go. This is why the practice of the Dhamma is of supreme worth. It's not just a game you play around with, for the defilements have a great deal of power that's hard to overcome. But if you make the effort to overcome them, they'll weaken as mindfulness and discernment grow stronger. This is when you can say that you're making progress in the Dhamma, when you can disband your own suffering and stress. So try to go all the way while you still have the breath to breathe. The Buddha said, "Make an effort to attain the as-yet unattained, reach the as-yet unreached, realize the as-yet unrealized." He didn't want us to be weak and vacillating, always making excuses for ourselves because now that we've ordained, we've already made an important sacrifice. In the Buddha's time, no matter where the monks and nuns came from royal, wealthy, or ordinary backgrounds, once they had left their homes, they cut their family ties and entered the Lord Buddha's lineage without ever returning. To return to the home life, he said, was to become a person of no worth. His only concern was to keep pulling people out, pulling them out of suffering and stress. If we want to escape, we have to follow his example, cutting away worry and concern for our family and relatives by entering his lineage. To live and practice under his discipline is truly the supreme refuge, the supreme way. Those who follow the principles of the Dhamma Vinaya, even though they may have managed only an occasional taste of its peace, without yet reaching the paths and their fruitions, pledge their lives to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. They realize that nothing else they can reach will lead to freedom from suffering, but if they reach this one refuge, they'll gain total release. Those whose mindfulness and discernment are deep, far-seeing, and meticulous will cross over to the further shore. They've lived long enough on this shore and have had all the suffering they can bear. They've circled around in birth and death countless times. So now they realize that they have to go to the further shore, and so they make a relentless effort to let go of their sense of self. There's nothing distant about the further shore, but to get there, you first have to give up your sense of self in the 5 aggregates by investigating to see them all as stress, to see that none of them are me or mine. Focus on this one theme, not clinging. The Lord Buddha once spoke of the past as below, the future as above, and the present as in the middle. He also said that unskillful qualities are below, skillful qualities above, and neutral ones in the middle. To each of them, he said, don't cling to it. Even Nibbana, the further shore, shouldn't be clung to. See how far we're going to be released through not clinging. Any of you who can't comprehend that even Nibbana isn't to be clung to should consider the standard teaching that tells us not to cling, that we have to let go. All things are unworthy of attachment. This is the ultimate summary of all that the Buddha taught. All phenomena, whether compounded or uncompounded, fall under the phrase Sabbe Dhamma Anatta. All phenomena are not self. They're all unworthy of attachment. This summarizes everything, including our investigation to see the truth of the world and of the Dhamma, to see things clearly with our mindfulness and discernment, penetrating through the compounded to the uncompounded, or through the worldly to the transcendent, all of which has to be done by looking within, not without. And if we want to see the real essence of the Dhamma, we have to look deeply, profoundly. Then it's simply a matter of letting go all along the way. We see all the way in and let go of everything. The theme of not clinging covers everything from beginning to end. If our practice is to go correctly, it's because we look with mindfulness and discernment to penetrate everything, not getting stuck on any form, feeling, perception, thought fabrication, or consciousness at all. The Buddha taught about how ignorance, not knowing form, delusion with form, leads to craving, the mental act that arises at the mind and agitates it, leading to the karma by which we try to get what we crave. When you understand this, you can practice correctly, for you know that you have to disband the craving. The reason we contemplate the body and mind over and over again is so that we won't feel desire for anything outside, won't get engrossed in anything outside. The more you contemplate, the more things outside seem pitiful and not worth getting engrossed in at all. The reason you were engrossed and excited was because you didn't know, and so you raved about people and things and made a lot of fuss, talking about worldly matters. This is good, that's bad. She's good, he's bad. The mind got all scattered in worldly affairs. And so, how could you examine the diseases within your own mind? The Buddha answered Mogaraja's question. In what way does one view the world so as not to be seen by the king of death? By telling him to view the world as empty, as devoid of self. We have to strip away conventions, such as person and being, and all designations such as elements, aggregates, and sense media. Once we know how to strip away conventions and designations, there's nothing we need to hold on to. What's left is the deathless, the transcendent, nibbana. There are many names for it, but they're all one and the same thing. When you strip away all worldly things, what's left is the transcendent. When you strip away all compounded things, what's left is the uncompounded, the true Dhamma. So consider for yourself whether or not this is worth attaining. If we stay in the world, we have to go through repeated births and deaths in the three levels of existence: sensuality, form, and formlessness. But on that further shore, there's no birth, no death. It's beyond the reach of the king of mortality. But because we don't know the further shore, we want to keep on being reborn on this shore with its innumerable repeated sufferings. Once you comprehend suffering and stress, though, there's nowhere else you want to turn. You head straight for the further shore, the shore with no birth or death, the shore where defilement and craving disband once and for all. Your practice thus goes straight to the cessation of suffering and defilement, to clear penetration of the common characteristics of inconstancy, stress, and not-selfness in the aggregates. People with mindfulness and discernment focus their contemplation in the direction of absolute disbanding, for if their disbanding isn't absolute, they'll have to be reborn again in suffering and stress. So keep disbanding attachments, keep letting go, contemplating inconstancy, stress, and not-selfness and relinquishing them. This is the right path for sure. Isn't this something worth knowing and training for? It's not all that mysterious or far away, you know. It's something that anyone, man or woman, can realize, something we can all train in. We can develop virtue, can make the mind quiet, and can use our mindfulness and discernment to contemplate. So isn't this really worth practicing? Stupid people like to say no. They say they can't do it. They can't observe the precepts, can't make the mind quiet. The best thing in life, the practice for release from suffering and stress, and yet they reject it. Instead, they rush around in a turmoil, competing with one another, bragging to one another, and then end up rotting in their coffins. Exactly what is appealing about all that? We've gone astray for far too long already, our lives almost gone after how many decades? Now we've come here to turn ourselves around. No matter how old you are, the air you breathe isn't just for your convenience and comfort, but for you to learn about suffering and stress. That way you'll be able to disband it. Don't imagine that your family and relatives are essential to you. You are alone. You came alone and you'll go alone. This holds true for each of us. Only when there's no self to go, that's when you penetrate to the Dhamma. If there is still a self to be born, then you're stuck in the cycle of suffering and stress. So isn't it worthwhile to strive for release? After all, it's something each of us has to find for him or herself. Those who trust in the Lord Buddha will all have to follow this way. To trust the defilements is to throw yourself down in the mire, and there who will you be able to brag to, aside from your own sufferings? The knowledge that leads to dispassion and disenchantment is what counts as true knowledge. But if your knowledge leads you to hold on, then you're a disciple of Mara. You still find things very delicious. You may say that you're disenchanted, but the mind isn't disenchanted at all. It still wants to take this, to get that, to stay right here. Whoever can keep reading the truth within her own mind, deeper and deeper, will be able to go all the way through, wiping out stupidity and delusion each step along the way. Where you used to be deluded, you've now begun to come to your senses. Where you used to brag, you now realize how very stupid you were, and that you'll have to keep on correcting your stupidity. Reading yourself, contemplating yourself, you see new angles, you gain more precise self-knowledge each step along the way. It's not a question of being expert about things outside. You see how what's inside is really inconstant, really stressful, really not self. The way you used to fall for things and latch onto them was because of your blindness, because you didn't understand. So who can you blame? Your own stupidity, that's who, because it wanted to brag about how much it knew. Now you know that you've still got a lot of stupidity left and that you'll have to get rid of it before you die. Every day that you still have breath left to breathe, you'll use it to wipe out your stupidity rather than to get this or be that or to dance around. The ones who dance around are possessed by spirits, the demons of defilement making them crazy and deluded, wanting to get this and be that and dance all over the place. But if you focus your attention in on yourself, then your pride, your conceit, your desires to stand out will shrink out of sight, never daring to show their faces for the rest of your life. For you realize that the more you brag, the more you suffer. So the essence of the practice is to turn around and focus inside. The more you can wash away these things, the more empty and free the mind will be. This is its own reward. If you connive with your conceits, you'll destroy whatever virtue you have. But if you can drive these demons away, virtuous ones will come and stay with you. If the demons are still there, the virtuous ones won't be able to stay. They can't get along at all. If you let yourself get entangled in turmoil, it's an affair of the demons. If you're empty and free, it's an affair of cleanliness and peace, an affair of the virtuous ones. So go and check to see how many of these demons you've been able to sweep away. Are they thinning out? When they make an appearance, point them right in the face and call them what they are. Demons and devils, come to eat your heart and drink your blood. You've let them eat you before, but now you've finally come to your senses and can drive them away. That will put an end to your troubles, or at least help your sufferings grow lighter. Your sense of self will start to shrivel away. Before, it was big, fat, and powerful, but now its power is gone. Your pride and conceit have grown thin and weak. It's as when a person has been bitten by a rabid dog. They give him a serum made from rabid dogs to drive out the disease. The same holds here. If we can recognize these things, they disband. The mind is then empty and at peace. For this one thing, the theme of not clinging, can disband suffering and stress with every moment. Simply stop right here. The way we've been contemplating to the point of giving rise to knowledge through genuine mindfulness and discernment makes us realize how this is a process of disbanding suffering and defilement. Whenever mindfulness lapses and we latch on to anything, our practice of reading ourselves step by step will enable us to realize the situation easily. This helps us keep the mind under control and does a world of good. Still, it's not enough, for the affairs of suffering and defilement are paramount issues buried deep in the character. We have to contemplate and examine things within ourselves. Looking outside is something we're already used to. Whenever we know things outside, the mind is in a turmoil instead of being empty and at peace. This is something we can all be aware of. And this is why we have to maintain the mind in its state of neutrality or mindful centeredness. We then notice from our experience in the practice, what state have we been able to maintain the mind in? Is our mindfulness continuous throughout all our activities? These are things we all have to notice, using our own powers of observation. When the mind deviates from its foundation because of mental fabrications, thinking up all sort of turmoil for itself as it's used to doing, what can we do to make it settle down and grow still? If it doesn't grow still, it gets involved in nothing but stress, wandering around thinking, imagining, taking on all sorts of things. That's stress. You have to keep reading these things at all times, seeing clearly the ways in which they're inconstant, changing, and stressful. Now, if you understand the nature of arising and passing away by turning inward to watch the arising and passing away within yourself, you realize that it's neither good nor bad nor anything of the sort. It's simply a natural process of arising, persisting, and passing away. Try to see deeply into this, and you'll be sweeping the mind clean, just as when you constantly sweep out your house. If anything then comes to make it dirty, you'll be able to detect it. So with every moment, we have to sweep out whatever arises, persists, and then passes away. Let it all pass away without latching on or clinging to anything. Try to make the mind aware of this state of unattachment within itself. If it doesn't latch on to anything, doesn't cling to anything, there's no commotion in it. It's empty and at peace. This state of awareness is so worth knowing, for it doesn't require that you know a lot of things at all. You simply have to contemplate so as to see the inconstancy of form, feelings, perceptions, thought fabrications, and consciousness. Or you can contemplate whatever preoccupies the mind as it continually changes, arising and passing away with every moment. This is something you have to contemplate until you really know it. Otherwise, you'll fall for your preoccupations in line with the way you label sensory contacts. If you don't fall for sensory contacts arising in the present, you fall for your memories or thought fabrications. This is why you have to train the mind to stay firmly centered in neutrality without latching on to anything at all. If you can maintain this one stance continuously, you'll be sweeping everything out of the mind, disbanding its suffering and stress in the immediate present with each and every moment. Everything arises and then passes away, arises and then passes away. Everything. Don't grasp hold of anything, thinking that it's good or bad or taking it as yourself. Stop all your discursive thinking and mental fabrications. When you can maintain this state of awareness, the mind will calm down on its own, will naturally become empty and free. If any thoughts arise, see that they just come and go, so don't latch on to them. When you can read the aspects of the mind that arise and pass away, there's not much else to do. Just keep watching and letting go within yourself, and there will be no remaining long drawn-out trains of thought about past or future. They all stop right at the arising and passing away. When you really see the present with its arisings and passings away, there are no great issues. Whatever you think about will all pass away, but if you can't notice its passing away, you'll grasp at whatever comes up, and then everything will become a turmoil of ceaseless imaginings. So you have to cut off these connected thought fabrications that keep flowing like a stream of water. Establish your mindfulness, and once it's established, simply fix your whole attention on the mind. Then you'll be able to still the flow of thought fabrications that had you distracted. You can do this at any time, and the mind will always grow still to become empty, unentangled, unattached. Then keep watch over the normalcy of the mind again and again whenever it gets engrossed and starts spinning out long, drawn-out thought fabrications. As soon as you're aware, let them stop. As soon as you're aware, let them stop, and things will disband right there. Whatever the issue, disband it immediately. Practice like this until you become skilled at it, and the mind won't get involved in distractions. It's like driving a car. When you want to stop, just slam on the brake and you stop immediately. The same principle works with the mind. You'll notice that no matter when, as soon as there's mindfulness, it stops and grows still. In other words, when mindfulness is firmly centered, then no matter what happens, as soon as you're mindfully aware of it, the mind stops, disengages, and is free. This is a really simple method, stopping as soon as you're mindful. Any other approach is just too slow to cope. This method of examining yourself, knowing yourself, is very worth knowing because anyone can apply it at any time. Even right here while I'm speaking and you're listening, just focus your attention right at the mind as it's normal in the present. This is an excellent way of knowing your own mind. Before we knew anything about all this, we let the mind go chasing after any thoughts that occurred to it, taking up a new thought as soon as it was finished with an old one, spinning its webs to trap us in all kinds of complications. Whatever meditation techniques we tried weren't really able to stop our distraction, so don't underestimate this method as being too simple. Train yourself to be on top of any objects that make contact or any opinions that intrude on your awareness. When pride and opinions come pouring out, cry, "Stop! Let me finish first." This method of calling a halt can really still the defilements immediately. Even when they're like two people interrupting each other to speak, the conceit or sense of self on one side immediately raising objections before the other side has even finished. Or you might say it's like suddenly running into a dangerous beast, a tiger or poisonous snake, with no means of escape. All you can do is simply stop, totally still, and spread thoughts of loving kindness. The same holds true here. You simply stop, and that cuts the strength of the defilement or any sense of self that's made a sudden appearance. We have to stop the defilements in their tracks, for if we don't, they'll grow strong and keep intensifying. So we have to stop them right from the first. Resist them right from the first. This way your mindfulness will get used to dealing with them. As soon as you say, "Stop," things stop immediately. The defilements will grow obedient and won't dare push you around in any way. If you're going to sit for an hour, make sure that you're mindful right at the mind the whole time. Don't just aim at the pleasure of tranquility. Sit and watch the sensations within the mind to see how it's centered. Don't concern yourself with any cravings or feelings that arise. Even if pain arises, in whatever way, don't pay it any attention. Keep being mindful of the centered normalcy of the mind at all times. The mind won't stray off to any pleasures or pains, but will let go of them all, seeing the pains as an affair of the aggregates because the aggregates are inconstant. Feelings are inconstant. The body's inconstant. That's the way they have to be. When a pleasant feeling arises, the craving that wants pleasure is contented with it and wants to stay with that pleasure as long as possible. But when there's pain, it acts in an entirely opposite way because pain hurts. When pains arise as we sit for long periods of time, the mind gets agitated because craving pushes for a change. It wants us to adjust things in this way or that. We have to train ourselves to disband the craving instead. If pains grow strong in the body, we have to practice staying at equanimity by realizing that they're the pains of the aggregates and not our pain, until the mind is no longer agitated and can return to a normal state of equanimity. Even if the equanimity isn't complete, don't worry about it. Simply make sure that the mind doesn't struggle to change the situation. Keep disbanding the struggling, the craving. If the pain is so unbearable that you have to change positions, don't make the change while the mind is really worked up. Keep sitting still, watch how far the pain goes, and change positions only when the right moment comes. Then as you stretch out your leg, make sure that the mind is still centered, still at equanimity. Stay that way for about 5 minutes and the fierce pain will go away. But watch out. When a pleasant feeling replaces the pain, the mind will like it. So you have to use mindfulness to keep the mind neutral and at equanimity. Practice this in all your activities because the mind tends to get engrossed with pleasant feelings. It can even get engrossed with neutral feelings. So you have to keep your mindfulness firmly established, knowing feelings for what they really are, inconstant and stressful, with no real pleasure to them at all. Contemplate pleasant feelings to see them as nothing but stress. You have to keep doing this at all times. Don't get infatuated with pleasant feelings, for if you do, you fall into more suffering and stress, because craving wants nothing but pleasure even though the aggregates have no pleasure to offer. The physical and mental aggregates are all stressful. If the mind can rise above pleasure, above pain, above feeling, right there is where it gains release. Please understand this. It's release from feeling. If the mind hasn't yet gained release from feeling, if it still wants pleasure, is still attached to pleasure and pain, then try to notice the state of mind at the moments when it's neutral toward feeling. That will enable it to gain release from suffering and stress. So we have to practice a lot with feelings of physical pain, and at the same time we have to try to comprehend pleasant feelings as well. For the pleasant feelings connected with the subtle defilements of passion and craving are things we don't really understand. We think that they're true pleasure, which makes us want them. This wanting is craving, and the Buddha tells us to abandon craving and passion for name and form. Passion here means wanting to get nothing but pleasure and then becoming entangled in liking or disliking what results. It means that we're entangled in the delicious flavors of feelings, regardless of whether they're physical feelings or mental ones. We should come to realize that when a feeling of physical pain gets very strong, we can handle it by using mindfulness to keep the mind from struggling. Then, even if there's a great deal of physical pain, we can let go. Even though the body may be in agitation, the mind isn't agitated along with it. But to do this, you first have to practice separating feelings from the mind while you're still strong and healthy. As for the feelings that come with desire, if we accumulate them, they lead to even greater suffering. So don't think of them as being easeful or comfortable, because that's delusion. You have to keep track of how feelings, no matter what the sort, are all inconstant, stressful, and not self. If you can let go of feeling, you'll become disenchanted with form, feelings, perceptions, thought fabrications, and consciousness that carry feelings of pleasure. But if you don't contemplate these things, you'll stay infatuated with them. So try noticing when the mind is in this infatuated state. Is it empty and at peace? If it's attached, you'll see that it's dirty and defiled because it's deluded into clinging. As soon as there's pain, it grows all agitated. If the mind is addicted to the three kinds of feeling, pleasant, painful, and neither pleasant nor painful, it has to endure suffering and stress. We have to see the inconstancy, stressfulness, and not selfness of the body and mind so that we won't cling. We won't cling whether we look outside or in. We'll be empty because of our lack of attachment. We'll know that the mind isn't suffering from stress. The more deeply we look inside, the more we'll see that the mind is empty of attachment. This is how we gain release from suffering and stress. It's the simplest way to gain release, but if we don't really understand, it's the hardest. Thus, it's extremely essential that you practice letting go. The moment the mind latches onto anything, you can really make it let go. And then notice to see that when you tell the mind to let go, it lets go. When you tell it to stop, it stops. When you tell it to be empty, it's really empty. This method of watching the mind is extremely useful, but we're rarely interested in contemplating to the point of becoming skillful and resourceful at disbanding our own sufferings. We practice in a leisurely, casual way and don't know which points we should correct, where we should disband things, what we should let go of. And so we keep circling around with suffering and attachment. We have to figure out how to find our opportunity to disband suffering with every moment. We can't just live, sleep, and eat at our ease. We need to find ways to examine and contemplate all things, using our mindfulness and discernment to see their emptiness of self. Only then will we be able to loosen our attachments. If we don't know with real mindfulness and discernment, our practice won't be able to lead us out of suffering and stress at all. Every defilement, each one in the list of 16, is hard to abandon. Still, they don't arise all 16 at once, but only one at a time. If you know the features of their arising, you can let them go. The first step is to recognize their faces clearly, because you have to realize that they're burning hot every time they arise. If they have you sad or upset, it's easy to know them. If they have you happy, they're harder to detect. So you first have to learn to recognize the mind at normalcy, keeping your words and deeds at normalcy too. Normalcy here means being free of liking and disliking. It's a question of purity in virtue, just as when we practice restraint of the senses. Normalcy is the basic foundation. If the mind isn't at normalcy, if it likes this or dislikes that, that means that your restraint of the senses isn't pure. For instance, when you see a sight with the eye or hear a sound with the ear, you don't get upset as long as no real pains arise. But if you get distracted and absent-minded as the pains get more and more earnest, your precepts will suffer and you'll end up all agitated. So don't underestimate even the smallest things. Use your mindfulness and discernment to disband things, to destroy them, and to keep working at your investigation. Then, even if serious events happen, you'll be able to let go of them. If your attachments are heavy, you'll be able to let go of them. If they're many, you'll be able to thin them out. The same holds true with intermediate defilements, the 5 hindrances. Any liking for sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and tactile sensations is the hindrance of sensual desire. If you don't like what you see, hear, etc., that's the hindrance of ill will. These hindrances of liking and disliking defile the mind, making it agitated and scattered, unable to grow calm. Try observing the mind when it's dominated by the 5 hindrances to see whether or not it's in a state of suffering. Do you recognize these intermediate defilements when they enshroud your mind? The hindrance of sensual desire is like a dye that clouds clear water, making it murky. And when the mind is murky, it's suffering. Ill will as a hindrance is irritability and dissatisfaction, and the hindrance of sloth and torpor is a state of drowsiness and lethargy, a condition of refusing to deal with anything at all, burying yourself in sleep and lazy forgetfulness. All the hindrances, including the final pair, restlessness and anxiety and uncertainty, cloak the mind in darkness. This is why you need to be resilient in fighting them off at every moment and in investigating them so that you can weaken and eliminate every form of defilement, from the gross to the middling and on to the subtle, from the mind. The practice of the Dhamma is a very delicate work, requiring that you use all your mindfulness and discernment in probing and comprehending the body and mind. When you look into the body, try to see the truth of how it's inconstant, stressful, and nothing more than physical elements. If you don't contemplate in this way, your practice will simply grope around and won't be able to release you from suffering and stress, for the sufferings caused by the defilements concocting things in the mind are more than many. The mind is full of all kinds of tricks. Sometimes you may gain some insight through mindfulness and discernment, becoming bright, empty, and at peace, only to find the defilement slipping in to spoil things, cloaking the mind in total darkness once more, so that you get distracted and can't know anything clearly. We each have to find special strategies in reading ourselves so that we don't get lost in distractions. Desire is a big troublemaker here, and so is distraction. Torpor and lethargy, all the hindrances, are enemies blocking your way. The fact that you haven't seen anything all the way through is because these characters are blocking your way and have you surrounded. You have to find a way to destroy them using apt attention. In other words, a skillful way of making use of the mind. You have to dig down and explore, contemplating to see how these things arise, how they pass away, and what exactly is inconstant, stressful, and not self. These are questions you have to keep asking yourself so that the mind will really come to know. When you really know inconstancy, you're sure to let go of defilement, craving, and attachment, or at least be able to weaken and thin them out. It's like having a broom in your hand. Whenever attachment arises, you sweep it away until the mind can no longer grow attached to anything, for there's nothing left for it to be attached to. You've seen that everything is inconstant, so what's there to latch onto? When you're persistent in contemplating to see your inconstancy, stress, and not-selfness, the mind feels ease because you've loosened your attachments. This is the marvel of the Dhamma, an ease of body and mind completely free from entanglement in the defilements. It's truly special. Before, the ignorance obscuring the mind caused you wander about spellbound by sights, sounds, and so forth, so that defilement, craving, and attachment had you under their power. But now, mindfulness and discernment break the spell by seeing that there's no self to these things, nothing real to them at all. They simply arise and pass away with every moment. There's not the least little bit of me or mine to them at all. Once we really know with mindfulness and discernment, we sweep everything clean, leaving nothing but pure Dhamma with no sense of self at all. We see nothing but inconstancy, stress, and not-selfness, with no pleasure or pain. The Lord Buddha taught, Sabbe Dhamma Anatta, all phenomena are not self. Both the compounded and the uncompounded, which is Nibbana, the transcendent, are not self. There's just Dhamma. This is very important. There's no sense of self there, but what is there is Dhamma. This isn't the extinction taught by the wrong view of annihilationism. It's the extinction of all attachment to me and mine. All that remains is deathlessness, the undying Dhamma, the undying property, free from birth, aging, illness, and death. Everything still remains as it was. It hasn't been annihilated anywhere. The only things annihilated are the defilements together with all suffering and stress. It's called sunyo, empty, because it's empty of the label of self. This deathlessness is the true marvel the Buddha discovered and taught to awaken us. This is why it's so worth looking in to penetrate clear through the inconstancy, stress, and not-selfness of the five aggregates, for what then remains is the natural Dhamma free from birth, aging, illness, and death. It's called unbinding, emptiness, the unconditioned. These names all mean the same thing. They're simply conventional designations that also have to be let go so that you can dwell in the aspect of mind devoid of any sense of self. So the paths, fruitions, and nibbana are not something to hope for in a future life by developing a vast heap of perfections. Some people like to point out that the Lord Buddha had to accumulate so many virtues. But what about you? You don't consider how many lives have passed while you still have yet to attain the goal, all because of your stupidity in continually finding excuses for yourself. The basic principles that the Lord Buddha taught, such as the 4 establishings of mindfulness, the 4 noble truths, the 3 characteristics of inconstancy, stress, and not-selfness, are right here inside you, so probe on in to contemplate them until you know them. Defilement, craving, and attachment are right here inside you too, so contemplate them until you gain true insight. Then you'll be able to let them go, no longer latching onto them as really being me or mine. This way you'll gain release from suffering and stress within yourself. Don't keep excusing yourself by relying, for instance, on the miraculous powers of some object or waiting to build up the perfections. Don't think in those terms. Think instead of what the defilements are like right here and now. Is it better to disband them or to fall in with them? If you fall in with them, is there suffering and stress? You have to find out the truth within yourself so as to get rid of your stupidity and delusion in thinking that this bodily frame of suffering is really happiness. We're all stuck in this delusion because we don't open our eyes. This is why we have to keep discussing these issues, giving advice and digging out the truth so that you'll give rise to the mindfulness and discernment that will enable you to know yourself. The fact that you've begun to see things, to acknowledge the defilements and stress within yourself to at least some extent, is very beneficial. It's better that we talk about these things than about anything else, so that we'll gain knowledge about suffering and its cause, about how to contemplate body, feelings, mind, and mental qualities so as to disband our suffering and stress. This way, we can reduce our sufferings because we'll be letting go of the defilements that scorch the mind and get it agitated. Our mindfulness and discernment will gradually be able to eliminate the defilements and cravings from the heart. This practice of ours, if we really do it and really come to know, will really reduce our sufferings. This will attract others to follow our example. We won't have to advertise, for they'll have to notice. We don't have to brag about what level we've attained or what degrees we've earned. We don't have any of that here, for all we talk about is suffering, stress, the defilements, not self. If we know with real mindfulness and discernment, we can scrape away our defilements, cravings, and attachments, and the good results will be right there inside us. So now that we have this opportunity, we should make a concerted effort for the sake of our own progress. Don't let your life pass under the influence of defilement, craving, and attachment. Make an effort to correct yourself in this area every day, every moment, and you're sure to progress in your practice of destroying your defilements and disbanding your suffering and stress at all times. This business of sacrificing defilements or sacrificing your sense of self is very important because it gives rewards, peace, normalcy, freedom with every moment, right here in the heart. The practice is thus something really worthy of interest. If you're not interested in the practice of searching out and destroying the diseases of defilement, of your own suffering and stress, you'll have to stay stuck there in repeated suffering along with every other ignorant person in the world. When Mara, temptation, tried to stop the Buddha's efforts by telling him that within 7 days he would become a universal emperor, the Buddha answered, "I know already, don't try to deceive me or tempt me." Because the Buddha had the ability to know such things instantly for himself, Mara was continually defeated. But what about you? Are you a disciple of the Lord Buddha or of Mara? Whenever temptation appears, there you go, following him hook, line, and sinker with no sense of weariness or dispassion at all. If we're really disciples of the Buddha, we have to go against the flow of defilement, craving, and attachment, establishing ourselves in good qualities, beginning with morality, which forms the ideal principle for protecting ourselves. Then we can gain release from suffering by working from the level of the precepts on to mental calm, and then using discernment to see inconstancy, stress, and not self. This is a high level of discernment, you know, the discernment that penetrates not self. At any rate, the important point is that you not believe your defilements, even though you may still have the effluence of ignorance or craving in your mind. Always keep making use of mindfulness and discernment as your means of knowing, letting go, scrubbing things clean. When these effluents come to tempt you, simply stop. Let go. Refuse to go along with them. If you believe them when they tell you to latch on to things, you'll simply continue being burned and agitated by desire. But if you don't go along with them, the desires in the mind will gradually loosen, subside, and eventually cease. So in training the mind, you have to take desire as your battlefield in the same way you would in treating an addiction. If you aren't intent on defeating it, there's no way you can escape being a slave to it repeatedly. We have to use mindfulness as a protective shield and discernment as our weapon to cut through and destroy our desires. That way, our practice will result in steady progress, enabling us to keep abreast of defilement, craving, and attachment with more and more precision. If, in your practice, you can read and decipher the mind, you'll find your escape route, following the footsteps of the noble ones. But as long as you don't see it, you'll think that there are no paths, no fruitions, no nibbana. Only when you can disband the defilements will you know. You really have to be able to disband them in order to know for yourself that the paths, fruitions, and nibbana really exist, and really can disband suffering and stress. This is something you have to know for yourself. It's timeless. No matter what the time or season, whenever you have the mindfulness to stop and let go, there's no suffering. As you learn to do this over and over, more and more frequently, the defilements grow weaker and weaker. This is why it's ehipassiko, something you can invite other people to come and see, for all people who do this can disband defilement and suffering. If they contemplate until they see inconstancy, stress, and not self, they'll no longer have any attachments, and their minds will become Dhamma, will become free. There's no need to get all excited about anyone outside, spirit entities, or whatever, because success in the practice lies right here in the heart. Look into it until you penetrate clearly all the way through yourself, sweep away all your attachments, and then you'll have this ehipassiko within you. Come and see, come and see. But if there's still any defilement, then it's come and see. Come and see the defilements burning me. It can work both ways, you know? If you disband the defilements, let go, and come to a stop, then it's come and see how the defilements are gone, how the mind is empty right here and now. This is something anyone can know, something you can know thoroughly for yourself with no great difficulty. Turning to look into the mind isn't all that difficult, you know. You don't have to travel far to do it. You can watch it at any time, in any posture. True things and false are all there within you, but if you don't study yourself within, you won't know them, for you spend all your time studying outside, the things of the world that worldly people study. If you want to study the Dhamma, you have to turn around and come inside, watching right at the body, at feelings, at the mind, at mental qualities until you know the truth that the body isn't you or yours. It's inconstant, stressful, and not self. Feelings are inconstant, stressful, and not self. The mind is inconstant, stressful, and not self as well. Then look at the Dhamma of mental qualities. They're inconstant and stressful. They arise, persist, and pass away. If you don't latch on and can become free from any sense of self right here at mental qualities, the mind becomes free. If you understand correctly, the mind is really easy to deal with. If you don't, it's the exact opposite. Like pushing a light switch. If you hit the on button, the light is immediately bright. With the off button, it's immediately dark. The same holds true with the mind. If your knowledge is wrong, it's dark. If your knowledge is right, it's bright. Then look to see if there's anything worth clinging to. If you really look, you'll see that there isn't, for all the things you can cling to are suffering and stress, affairs of ignorance, speculation, daydreaming, taking issue with things, self, people, useless chatter, endless news reports. But if you focus on probing into the mind, there's nothing but letting go to be empty and free. This is where the Dhamma arises easily as defilements arise on the other side, simply that you're now looking from a different angle and have the choice. Do you want the dark angle or the bright? Should you stop or keep running? Should you be empty or entangled? It's yours to decide within you. The Dhamma is something marvelous and amazing. If you start out with right understanding, you can understand all the way through. If you get snagged at any point, you can examine and contemplate things to see where you're still attached. Keep cross-examining back and forth, and then all will become clear. We're already good at following the knowledge of defilement and craving, so now we have to follow the knowledge of mindfulness and discernment instead. Keep cross-examining the defilements. Don't submit to them easily. You have to resist their power and refuse to fall in with them. That's when you'll really come to know. When you really know, everything stops. Craving stops. Your wandering stop. Likes, hatreds. This knowledge sweeps everything away. But if you don't know, you keep gathering things up until you're thoroughly embroiled. Arranging this, adjusting that, wanting this and that, letting your sense of self rear its ugly head.
Think of it like this. You're a huge playhouse showing a true-to-life drama whose hero, heroine, and villains, which are conventional suppositions, are entirely within you. If you strip away all conventional suppositions and designations, what you have left is nothing but Dhamma, freedom, emptiness. And simply being free and empty of any sense of self is enough to bring the whole show to an end.